Hey there, Legal Tea listeners. This is your host, Jenny Roselle. Welcome back for another episode of Legal Tea. Today's topic is a current trend, something going on in the current time that is pertinent to my little estate and elder law world. Today's topic is on the hashtag Betty White Challenge, which occurred a few weeks ago now, but hey, it's still a timely topic. And I'm going to be blending this topic in with some talk about how to support animals and pets in your own estate plan. Now, this is an episode that I can get behind, and it was really fun to write, to be honest. Maybe it's because if you've been following Legal Tea since the very beginning, you know I'm a dog lover, and I personally have 2 basset hounds. So near the end of 2021, I know it. In the very beginning of Legal Tea, I referenced my 2 basset hounds named Floyd and Mildred. Well, near the end of 2021, we lost our beloved basset Floyd, who was in the most non-creepy and weird way possible. He was my guy. I would tell people often that when Floyd passed away, I knew I'd go into a deeply sad place, and I did. It was awful. The only thing that gave me relief was knowing he was free of pain. But even today, nearly 2 months later, I still miss him so much. We still have the other one, Mildred, who is around 10 or 11. She's a rescue, so you know how it goes. The ages are always a big guess. And because Mildred missed Floyd so much, we very recently got Mildred a friend. A very young, rambunctious, 6-month-old basset hound puppy who we have named Flossie. So we do still have the 2 basset hounds, but they've switched up a bit since last time I talked about them on here. Anyway, so as everyone under the sun knows, old Betty White, she passed away on December 31st, 2021 at the age of 99 years old. She was about to turn 100 in like 2 weeks or so after that. So according to an article in HITC, a news site online, the Betty White Challenge supposedly originated by a Twitter user and Betty White fan named Lisa Powell, who, quote, thought making donations to animal shelters was the least one could do to honor the legendary actress. As you may or may not know, Betty White was a huge animal lover. And I'm sure since following Betty's passing, you probably have seen a handful of pictures of Betty and animals because they were floating around everywhere. One of my favorite Betty White sayings about animals is, quote, "Animals don't lie. Animals don't criticize. If animals have moody days, they handle them better than humans do." End quote. Touche, Betty, touche. So good. So anyway, the big idea of the hashtag Betty White Challenge was for people to be inclined to donate to animal rescues and shelters on Betty's 100th birthday, which occurred on January 17th, 2022. And that idea spread like wildfire. And on Betty's 100th birthday, man, did people show up. I saw so many people posting about donating to various animal rescues and shelters. I mean, I donated. Of course, I donated to the Ohio Basset Hound Rescue, which is where we have gotten Mildred and Flossie from. So special shout out to them. Today's episode is not just about the Betty White Challenge, but it was a timely enough topic that I thought I could weave into the conversation because we're going to be chatting about supporting animals and pets. Talk about weaving them into your estate plan. So there are 2 big things that you can do to support animals and pets. First, you can support your favorite organizations in your plan by donating any amount to them following your passing. And 2, you can actually specifically also provide what happens to your beloved pets in your plan following your passing and if they're still living. So let's tackle each of these ideas one by one, starting with how to incorporate supporting and donating to animal shelters and rescues within your estate plan. In general, I see 3 ways you can tackle this. First, you can put them as a beneficiary of your will or trust, meaning that they get a specified percentage of your estate, following, of course, expenses and taxes, that sort of thing. So say, for example, you have the Humane Society as a 25% beneficiary, and your 3 kids each get 25% too. So you got 75% going to your 3 kids and 25% to the Humane Society. And that's just an example of what this one looks like. So this idea looks like. I see some clients do it this way, but it's less common than the other 2 options that I'm going to talk about because it's sort of hard to control what they end up getting at the end of the day, meaning the organization could end up with way more or way less than you really are wanting. Second, you can actually bequeath them a specific amount. And I know that's a really funny and weird word, but it basically means that after, again, taxes and expenses, all those sort of things, there's something called a bequest, if there are any, that take place first before beneficiaries. And this is probably the most common method I see clients do. So, for example, say after taxes and expenses, you have a $5,000 bequest to the Humane Society. So your executor or trustee, depending on what type of plan you have, would distribute $5,000 to the Humane Society on the top, and then the remaining funds would go to your designated beneficiaries. And if you want to give a fairly significant amount too, you can actually put some parameters around the bequest. So like, say, $50,000 to the Humane Society, so long as the estate exceeds $500,000, and if the estate does not exceed $500,000, then this bequest lapses, or something like that. Third, you can actually put the organization as an actual beneficiary on an asset. I mostly see this on like a retirement account. And there are tax benefits in doing it this way. So what this looks like is that instead of the organization actually being in your will or trust as a percentage beneficiary or bequest, the organization is actually designated as a beneficiary on the asset itself. So at your passing, the organization claims their share of the asset as the designated beneficiary. And I see it somewhat often on retirement accounts because oftentimes retirement accounts are buckets of money that hasn't been taxed yet. So when these kind of funds go to a charitable organization, there are significant tax advantages in doing it this way for you and your estate, and it passes to them tax-free. So those 3 general ideas are how you can provide for and support animal shelters and rescues from an estate planning perspective. And please, if you have any questions at all about this or how to tackle this within your own estate plan and just need to kind of bounce ideas back and forth, feel free to reach out to me at legaltpodcast@gmail.com. I would be honored and happy to help you figure out a way to support your local animal shelters and rescues. So next topic that I referenced a bit ago was how to provide for your own pets within your estate plan, which I think is a wonderful idea. After all, there's some extravagant percentage of animals that end up in shelters and rescues because their owners passed away or fell ill. And then no one wants them, or maybe no one can take them. So getting this conversation started while you are healthy and, sorry to be so crude, but alive is important. Doing so will help prevent your beloved pets from ending up in a place that you would never have wanted them to end up. first, it's really important to figure out who is able and willing to take in your pets. And it certainly doesn't hurt to have a backup too. So say you talk to your niece, and we're going to name her Amanda. And Amanda is able and willing to take in your pets if something were to happen to you. Well, let's get a backup in place for Amanda in case, one, something happens to her, or two, maybe her circumstances change and she becomes unable to take in your pets. So just find a successor to old Amanda, okay? Second, it does not hurt to throw them a little bone. And what I mean by that is a little monetary bone. So say Amanda takes in your furry friends, and we all know that these furry friends cost money. So between food and treats, of course, and vet bills, and especially as they age, they may start, having to take medications. All of this is money, money, money. There's no wrong amount either that you can give to Amanda in your estate plan. I like how I just have come up with this random Amanda. But anyways, there's no wrong amount that you can give her. So don't feel like you're giving her not enough or too much. I've seen as low as a couple $1,000s to as much as like $20,000 plus. So here in my example, it gives Amanda the opportunity, the financial opportunity to help care for the pets. So yeah, there are multiple ways that when you take the time to hashtag do your estate plan, you can support animal shelters and rescues and organizations that are near and dear to your heart, and or support your own furry friends. Some people, when I'm meeting with them and they bring up their pets, they sort of laugh and say something like, oh, this may sound silly, but should we say something about Fluffy? And I'm always like, yes, 100% yes, let's do it. And then we start talking about what works for them. One last thing before I end this episode, especially this being a current trends episode, I was about to sit down and write this episode when a friend told me about a pending bill in the Indiana House, which is House Bill 1160, which I know you don't really care, but in case you want to look it up, I figured I should mention the bill number. Anyway, the bill, according to a Fox 59 article, will, quote, bar pet stores from selling dogs or cats unless they come from a shelter or rescue facility, end quote. Basically, this bill is taking aim at puppy mills in Indiana. And according to Representative Tom Saunders, he shared in the article, quote, we were just trying to find a way to get homes for these animals. Are we going to put the puppy mills out of business or private breeders? No, but we are shining a light on the issue, end quote. Interestingly, which I totally didn't know, the article stated that Indiana is among the highest, if not the highest, number of puppy mills in the state, like of all 50 states. So if that's the case, no wonder there is a pending bill about it. And of course, there's a process before this becomes law. It's still pending. It is not the law yet, so don't misconstrue what I'm saying here. But it's good to know nonetheless, because something like this would absolutely have an impact on this whole conversation about rescues and shelters. In terms of a more current update on the bill, as of writing this episode at least, and I'm writing this episode and recording this episode at the end of January, so in case something happens before this episode gets released, Representative Saunders explained that the bill has not yet even gotten to a committee. And Representative Chris Campbell explained that he really urges Indiana citizens to contact the Commerce Committee to push them to hear the bill. So if you're really passionate about this, make sure you give them a call. So yeah, while it doesn't directly deal with pets and estate planning, I figured it was a really timely fun fact nugget to mention in this episode. If you are a big old nerd like me, I did put a direct link to the House Bill 1160 in the source links for this episode, so take a look. Alrighty, let's wrap up this current trends, current events episode, shall we? Next week's topic is on estate planning of the rich and the famous. And on that episode, we're going to be talking about Tom Petty, which of course everyone knows that name. And us Indiana peeps like to think that Tom Petty super likes us because he has that piece in his song, Mary Jane's Last Dance. She grew up in an Indiana town, had a good, I can't even say this without wanting to sing it. Had a good-looking mama who never was around, but she grew up tall and she grew up right with them Indiana boys on Indiana night. Anyway, we will talk about Mr. Petty next Tuesday, Legal Tea listeners. Talk to you then and stay well.